So we kind of touched on this really briefly, but were there like specific things because of the coronavirus pandemic that like really slowed things down, or like really unique hurdles you kind of faced because of that?
So we were supposed to shoot in March, and everyone was freaking out. My argument was that like that was when cases were pretty much non-existent in the United States, and like we had people that already had their plane tickets ready to go, and I was trying to tell everyone like we need to like do this now before there are more cases because nothing's happening right now. And most of my crew backed out, and I was like, screw it, like we'll have to.
Yeah, there was really no argument we could make that would change their minds.
Right, and it was like, ironically, most of the crew nowadays are just kind of like over it, and they're like,
dude, like there was something about like there was this incredible hysteria that sort of took over everybody in March.
Yeah,
like towards the end of March, people just went insane.
Yeah,
like there was this idea that like the next person you touch is going to give you the virus, and it was like,
right,
it overcame the entire psyche of the country.
And I wasn't like my claims weren't baseless either. Like I was watching the numbers. Like I wasn't just gonna blindly go like, oh yeah, I'm gonna put you all in harm's way. It's like no, like I had the number, like the case numbers in front of me and everything, and I'm like, look, like there aren't. Like,
my argument was like, look, this right now is the safest you're ever gonna be. So pushing it back to summer isn't gonna make you any safer.
Right. But you know, people were scared, and I was like, you know what, fine. Like we'll push it back. And we'll see what happens to see if things kind of like let up and whatnot. And then June came around and things, well, as you already know, were worse.
Yeah.
And I basically just kind of came to them and I said, listen, if we're going to do this, we need to do this now. And you're with me or you're not. Because like I'll just go do it myself. It was basically one of those, which I know sounds like a kind of dickish, but we were under a lot of pressure at this point, and we made sure like the set like we had from my knowledge like everyone was tested and no one had anything, and we had hand sanitizer all over the set and everything. So if people wanted to wash their hands, they could. The talent was wearing masks like 90% of the time. As you can obviously see in the movie, everyone's wearing masks. So, and the crew had their own. They had their own separate place to stay. I stayed with the cast at the shooting location, but everything was managed pretty well. Like no one got sick, so I think we handled it pretty well. Even though most of us were kind of savages, like we're you know like ready to rough it, ready to go, ready to get it done. But yeah, it was definitely like decision time at that point to kind of just make the call like, all right, are we gonna do this or not? Now it did work out in our favor to some extent. The unfortunate thing was that most of the cast was wearing like early spring clothing. And not summer clothing. It was fucking miserable, dude. Like,
you want to know why everybody's masks were fogged up to shit? It's because they're not legit gas masks, and like holy fuck, bro, it was insanely hot.
Yeah, we want like the original look. We wanted to go for like, which we kind of achieved it. Like was like mainly like browns and reds. You know, kind of like that fall look. I was basing most of the cinematography off of the look of 1917. That nice dense fog and everything, and cloudy weather. I'm gonna
bring that up because like part of like the entire aesthetic for the cinematography was like really centered around let's do it in early spring when all the like trees are brown, and we'll get that nice sort of like that really awesome sort of horror feel that we could get out of that. And so I was really worried that it was gonna really destroy the look of it by like going to summer, and the saving grace of course being that, well, a little fog goes a long way, I'll just say.
Yeah.
And by little fog, I mean a lot of fog.
Hold for fog.
A considerable amount of fog.
Yeah, there's a lot of fog continuity errors between a couple shots at the beginning, which I don't care. Like I do know like that opening sequence, like we were going through really quick because we were burning daylight. But that definitely helped out, and it turned out all right. It worked out too because a few of our cast members had some personal stuff come up in March, so it actually worked out pretty well. We also had more time to flesh out the look of the characters, and we also got a couple additional sponsors as well. Mechanics gloves being one of them, so that was cool.
Did they just give you
one
free
of the
base?
thing
Basically?
is like whenever you're like sort of through it, everything's sort of like trivial in retrospect because like obviously the fears passed. But I tell you what, man, the levels of anxiety were unbelievable. Like it felt like, because whenever you do any kind of filmmaking, it's about minimizing as much chaos as you can so that you can have as much control as possible.
Yeah.
But it felt like everything in the world was just conspiring to make as much disorder as possible. Even right up until like a few days before, it was like, oh, the biggest riots in American history happened. It's like, great, fuck it, you know, that too, just throw that on the list. Great.
Yeah, like it was like I try to be a reasonable person, but with this, like with what Evan said, it's like everything was being thrown at us, which I know kind of sounds a little self-centered. It's like, oh, the world doesn't revolve around us, like obviously, but I also don't. I don't. Like,
Well, I was the way I saw it was like, man, if we could have had a pandemic, could you have done it like next year or something?
Yeah, right. Like, but I don't like losing, and it doesn't matter what it is. And I was so asphyxiated on like, we're gonna do this, we're gonna get it done, and it's gonna be fucking awesome. And I don't care what gets in my way. It was kind of like my whole outlook on it. And a lot of the people that were involved too, that were on set, like we had a pretty modest crew. Like I think we only had, like, for most of the days we had 2 grips. I had 2 ACs, 1 assistant director, script supervisor, and that was really it.
Yeah, wow.
And a
Which
PA,
isn't
and
unusual.
a PA. Like it was a skeleton crew, but like
Yeah.
we only had 4 people for Dollhouse, but Dollhouse was all in one location.
Well,
But I mean, well, 2 locations, but you know, was a little bit more not this scale. But
yeah,
with
you're
it,
you're much out of the elements.
yeah, and with this, like we didn't have cell service where we were.
Oh, wow.
So we actually had no idea like what was going on in the world either. Like we like within those 5 days, something could have happened and we would have had no idea. But you know, we got it done because after that it was just all right, cool, back to isolation and just put my face on my screen for 4 months, which is exactly what we did.
I just think it's insane how long post-production took as well. 'Cause,
Yeah.
like that was like it legit wrapped like early in June. It was like done, and then I remember when you got back, you started cutting it like almost as soon as you came back.
Yep.
I've made this analogy before, and it's not a perfect analogy, but it certainly encapsulates the feeling. And it's like filmmaking is you spend like 1 or 2 weeks just making a mess, and then you spend the next 2 to 3 months cleaning it up. Like that's literally what it was.
Yeah. Like we even had like some missing. There was a couple there was missing coverage that I didn't even realize. Like when Lambert gets his throat opened in the on the second floor.
Yeah.
That whole shot was actually supposed to be done in one take, but we didn't have enough pressure in the blood tube that was rigged in his camelback and his plate carrier. So the blood wasn't shooting out the way it should have, so we had to digitally enhance it, and I had to add the shot, the close-up of him holding his neck and the blood shooting through it. But with all that going on, I didn't get a single of Cicero, which I wish I had, because then we could have extended the shot a little bit more, because the shot when he looks over, that shot is like super wide. Like I was pushing the 4K file to its limits. Like that, like I think I punched in like to where basically the image is HD at that point.
Oh wow.
And
Okay.
just to kind of make it work. Yeah, there was a lot of you know, editing black magic fuckery that we had to do to make sure that
Anybody
it
who
flowed
like
well.
gets up their ass about resolution at all costs has never actually worked before. Because like, dude, if you've ever seen like actual feature films and TV shows, like they crop all the time.